Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm really excited for my guest that I have on today. He and I have gotten a chance to connect over social media. We've gotten a pretty good friendship built, and I'm looking forward to the stuff that he's going to share with you, not only about what he's doing in his life, but also about his kids and the things that he's doing as a dad. So my good friend, Carlos Reyes, has joined me on Dad Up. Thank you very much for joining me, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me and finally making this happen, man. Thanks for being flexible. It worked out. Here we are. It's funny. You even allowed me to drop my fifth grader off, right? We're supposed to be on, 15 minutes ago. And then you said, hey, and I said, hey, I'm dropping off my fifth grader. And you were like, totally cool. This is what the podcast is all about, being a dad. So here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a couple of scheduling conflicts over the last, I would say, probably month or so now, but I'm glad it finally worked out. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation and excited to hear not only about the things you're doing, because it's stuff that I'm actually interested in, and it's stuff that my wife and I have talked a lot about, being in real estate and actually home flipping, and it's something that is kind of, I guess, inspires me, is something I'm really, really considering looking into further. I've talked about a lot about it with my wife over the years, but also more importantly about your kids. You got two girls, and I'm really interested in hearing how you're kind of raising them and how things are going on that end. So before we get started and all that, let's start off with you. I want to know, for my listeners who may not know who you are, I want to know a backstory of Carlos, how you kind of grew up and the things that you kind of went through, and then how you transitioned to who you were to who you are today and the things you're doing today. So why don't we start off with that?
Coincidentally, I have this picture of my mother and myself.
That's very cool.
Right here. I don't even know how I got here. And I was looking at it. I'm like, why is this here? Right. This is a very old picture. And this is myself and my mother in Mexico. That's where I was born. I was born in Mexico, in northern part, Sonora. And, there's a lot of poverty in Mexico. I wasn't born into, an educated family. I wasn't born into a rich family. I was born into a very, very poor family. My mother and my father, after my mother had two children, two boys, which was myself and my brother, they just weren't getting along. My father fell into doing some bad stuff, and my mother just had to get away from him. So what she did was she migrated down even a little more south in Mexico to my grandparents' home. And, my grandfather, I've put this picture up of this house that we used to live in as kids a lot of times, multiple times on social media. My grandfather, the house that we lived in, he built that house with his bare hands. In Mexico, when you have money, you live down in the city. Right. It's kind of reverse, here in America, when you have money, you live in the mountains. You know what I mean? You live up in the hills. Right. In Mexico, when you don't have money, you live up in the mountains and you build whatever you can with whatever piece of land you can get. So my grandfather built this home, and we didn't have flooring. I want you to just kind of imagine this area, right, that I lived in. It was dirt floor. There was no bedrooms. There was no bathrooms. Okay. Just, I'm going to kind of walk you through my home, growing up until, most of my childhood. So, he built this home. The exterior was plywood. He built it with his bare hands. I saw him build two homes throughout my life, my childhood. So this was the first home he built. It was plywood. It was, 4x4s holding up the plywood. It was laminate roofing. And, inside the main common area, he had a bed over to the side where my grandmother and him slept. And on the other side, we had two beds. One bed I shared with my brother, and then the other bed was for my mother. Now you go into the kitchen area, and in the kitchen area, it's more dirt floor. And I want you to remember this. There was no electricity there. not just because it was our home. There was just no electricity in the area. The electricity had not made it up to that part of town. There was no electricity. So for light, we use petroleum lamps, right? Like literally it's like gas lamps, you know? That was our lighting system at nighttime. And water, there was no running water. There was no sewer system up there. So we had to buy our water from a truck that would come up with a huge container, and we would buy, you know, I mean, just these big blue gallons. You know, what we would do is we would fill these big gallons, and we knew that, like, we calculated 5 of those huge gallons. We're talking not like little 1 gallons, 5 gallons. We're talking about some pretty big jugs here, right? And that would last us until the next time the truck, you know, the water truck guy came out. And then what he did is he built a bathroom in the, you know, in the exterior, in the backyard, literally a hole, right? A hole, and you know, just a covering. And you know, that we had, like I said, man, there was no toilet, there was no shower, there was nothing like that, you know. And we had a washing board in the backyard. We had a washing board with my grandmother and my mom. You know, they were just, do you remember those old school washing boards that had these little kind of ripples, right? You just wash on them, and then we would hang our clothes on these like lines, you know, with those little clips, those little wooden clips. We would just hang our clothes there, you know. So I say that to say this: my mom, you know, this woman, right? She's still alive, praise God. She wanted more for us. She wanted more for her children. She knew that, you know, there was no future there. There was no future there, you know. So what she did was she had a hard talk with my grandparents, and she said, hey, you know, will you guys watch my children while I go away to the other side? The other side was America.
Right.
I'm going to go away. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but can I count on you guys, you know, to watch them? And as soon as I get a job over there, I'm going to send money. It's the first thing I'm going to do. And my grandparents agreed. So, you know, my mother, she left when I was in the first grade and second grade, for 2 years. You know, I didn't see my mom for 2 years, and it was rough because I used to keep you know, a picture like this right under my pillow, and you know, I would cry a lot because, you know, it's something that I never want any of my children to ever even question is, you know, why did my father leave, or why did my mother leave? For me, it was harder because it was my mother, right? And mothers on earth is the closest thing that, in my opinion, you'll get to God's love. You know, I mean, it's different, you know, that as a dad. I mean, mothers just, you know, they carry the child, they you know, everything, right? So they're connected to us in a different way. So I used to sleep with her picture under my pillow and just, you know, wonder, man, what did I do? You know, why did she leave? You know, so that really messed with me as a child. And I don't think I don't understand, right? I don't care who you are. You know, if you're 5 years old, 6 years old, I don't care if my grandmother is coming up to me saying, hey, no, your mom's going to come back. She's just trying to make it better for you guys. You don't understand that as a child, right? No, there's no way. So anyway, eventually, you know, so there was several houses down. There was one person several houses down that had a telephone, and that's where my mom would call Fridays at 5 p.m. at like clockwork, and that's where we would talk to, you know, on a weekly basis. And it was always a hard talk, you know. It was like, you know, where are you? When can I see you? Why aren't you not here? So eventually, you know, my mom saved up enough money, and she got her paperwork. She got her status, or legalization status here in America, by going through an amnesty program in California, right? She went through an amnesty. She was out working the fields, and she was granted paperwork, legalization. She's still not a citizen to this day, by the way. She's been here for a long time. She's been here 30 plus years, and she's not a citizen. So anyway, she got legalization, and what she did, man, you would totally, you know, it's going to surprise you. She came down and she grabbed my brother and myself, and just like she's carrying me here, That's how she carried my brother across a sewer canal in San Ysidro, California, next to Tijuana, next to TJ, right? Sorry about that. That's one of my softwares here. Give me 1 second, leave, done. So she carried my brother, with her left hand, just like she's carrying me there. And she kind of just, dragged me with her right. And we went through a sewer canal in San Ysidro next to TJ. And we made it. We got all the way through to Escondido, California, in San Diego County. And we only lasted a year there. Like I attended the third grade there, right? We lasted a year. And by the time it was all said and done, it was just too expensive for us to survive in California with a single mom. And now she's trying to raise 2 children. We failed, we failed financially. By the time, I remember the weekend before we were going to drive back to Mexico, we were already living under a tree because we didn't have anywhere to go. So my mom got a ride from one of her friends to drop us off at the border in TJ again, right? Tijuana. So, our first mission failed. And all I can think about on the drive back is I'm just crying my butt off, on the back of that truck. Because the sacrifices and the pain, right? The abandonment that we had to go through to make it over, it was a huge victory when we made it over to the United States. Well, now all of that, it seemed like all of that was for nothing, all those sacrifices, because now we failed and we're going back, right? So we're going back, and my mom's a strong woman. She turns around and she says, "Hey, son," she's like, don't worry about it. We're going to get back here. We're going to make it back, and she came up with the plan. She says, I'm going to work. I'm going to save, and you're going to work and you're going to save. Now, keep in mind, I'm just getting out of the third grade. So I've also posted this I started, as soon as I got back to Mexico, in the fourth grade, I started bagging groceries at a retail store. I was a grocery bagger. And now I know enough English, just enough to know to be dangerous. This store was called La Ley. It's like a Walmart, right? And it's near the resort that my mother cleans. She's cleaning rooms in this resort, and then I'm bagging groceries. Well, a lot of Americans would come to the store, so I would speak a little. I was the only guy that spoke English there. So, brother, when I'm telling you, I was walking away with $10 a day. And it might not seem like a lot now, but this is like the mid 90s, right? This is around 95, 96. And, my mom's making like $20 to $30 a week, working 10 hours a day, cleaning hotel rooms. Brother, I'm making $10 to $20 a day, on tips, right? A dollar. Think about it, right? If I get 10 Americans to give me $1, I just made $10 for the day. That's about half or a little less than half of what my mom was making a week,
right?
Working like 10 hours cleaning hotel rooms. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, between her and I, we save up enough money, and then we send her to Phoenix, Arizona. She had some friends here, and they told her it was much more affordable. These people used to live in California, and they're like, "Hey, it's much more affordable here." And then sure thing, man. We gather up enough money. We send her over here on the bus. Here goes another year and a half without my mom. Now, I'm in the fourth grade, fifth grade, right? Sixth grade. And, I don't have my mom again. Right. So anyway, this time, she comes back and she says, "I'm not going to make the same mistakes I made last time. I'm just going to bring you're the oldest. I'm going to bring you over first." Right. I think I'm in the 7th grade. So I'm around 12 years old at this point. Watch this. This is, it gets even crazier. So she pays a guy in Nogales, Sonora, $25. It's a human smuggler. It's a coyote, right? Again, I don't have papers, man. I'm not legal here. So she pays this guy $25, and she tells the guy, she tells me, "Hey, son, I'm going to wait for you on the other side of this fence, right? In Nogales. He's going to take you to me on the other side of the fence. Listen to him, listen to him. Whatever he asks you to do, just do it." So sure thing. When the guy told me to duck, I ducked. When he told me to run, I ran. When he told me to army crawl, I army crawl. When he told me to jump, I jumped. I jumped through this fence in Nogales, met my mom at the McDonald's, and then we made our way up to Phoenix, Arizona. You know, and to this day, $25. It's the best investment. You know, right? Looking at it from an arbitrage standpoint, it's like it's the best investment my mom ever made. $25 to get me over to this country. So we get over, and you know, I'm at 12 years old, brother. I'm already working out in the construction sites, like just with the wheelbarrow, cleaning up after people. And it's funny because, you know, I was watching these people like renovate these houses at 12 years old, and look what I do. Look, I literally write books about this now, right? So I'm watching these people just renovate these homes, and I'm like, man, one day I would like to renovate these houses, because I'm just a wheelbarrow guy. I'm just throwing all the trash, right? And they're paying me under the table for cash, 12 years old. So I don't, subconsciously, that was already there. I'm like, one day I'm gonna renovate homes. And I did that at 12, I did that at 13, and then at 14 years old, my mom, you know, I don't know how she did it, but she got me to work in the airport. Literally as a 14-year-old, you know, she told the boss that I was 18. Back then, they weren't really, you know, crazy on paperwork. You know what I mean? And she told the boss I was 18. So now I'm like doing, it's called back setup, where I'm, you know, the airplanes where you have these containers and they put alcohol in them, right? Mm-hmm. The little alcohol, right? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. They give me a plan. They're like, okay, the wine goes here, the vodka goes here. So at 14 years old, I'm already doing back setup. I'm stuffing these things so they can go to the plane and have alcohol and things like that. It was food, it was wine, it was all that. 14, you know, years old, 15 years old. And then at 16, I start working for temp agencies, doing at the Dial Corporation, blah, blah. By the way, I have no paperwork, you know. My mom did start my paperwork process in 1997, and I didn't get my work permit till the early 2000s, and then I got a resident card, and then I got my citizenship in 2012. So I went through that whole process, right? Praise God. But I've been working all my life, man. You know, I've been working all my life. So now, you know, I'm still helping her. I'm the man of the house. You know, I'm helping her pay half of the rent. I mean, at you know, not 12, because at 12 I was just making enough for like my shoes and my clothes. But at 14, now I'm the man of the house. Now I'm making enough money to be like, all right, mom, here's for the electricity bill. Here's half of the rent. I had to grow up pretty quick. You know, I didn't have much of a childhood. I didn't have much of a teenage life. But all that led to where I am today. And I did that. And then I finally got my paperwork, you know, a work permit. I can now work. I did corporate America for 10 plus years, learned a lot. That was my college. I learned everything, you know, management, team building, culture, right? KPI, systems, processes, departments. I mean, I learned all of that. You know what I mean? That was my college, right? And one day I just, you know, brother, I just wasn't making enough money I now have my beautiful wife that I've been with since I was 17. I have my firstborn child in 2012. And I'm like, man, you know, this isn't going to do it. Like, we're all here struggling. It's 2012. And, you know, we're having to buy my wife a 2006 Nissan Rogue. You know, it's like, this isn't going to do it. You know, I got to do more. And I kind of just tapped back into that immigrant mentality of like, man, I was selling bread in Mexico as a child, you know, right. Like in Mexico, when I was, you know, the first time my mom left, I was going door to door selling bread, right. You know, and I tapped back into that, you know, a go-getter. And in 2013, I started looking into real estate wholesaling. You know, I read a book. It was called Flip by Nick Reyes, who's actually one of my really good friends now. It's funny, like, you know, you do well in any business, and your mentors become your friends. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful transition. So anyway, I read this book, Flip by Nick Reyes. It was $10, and Man, it said, become a real estate investor. You don't need money, you don't need credit, and you don't need a real estate license. I'm like, I'm like, check, check. Right? I'm like, I don't have any of that, right? But I've always remember when I was 12 years old, I always wanted to flip houses, right? So I discovered this thing called wholesaling, where you're just the bird dog, like you're the deal finder, right? You're the deal sourcer, where you are finding off market discounted houses, right? And you're solving problems. Okay. So whatever that book told me to read, man, I'm telling you, I would read chapter one, and chapter one would say, praise God, by the way, that, this happened, right? I took massive action and made a lot of rough draft moves, because it said, go drop 100 bandit signs every weekend. And I'm like, I don't have money for bandit signs. So my wife, I don't know if I've posted pictures of literally handwritten bandit signs in the back of her 2006 Nissan Rogue, right? So I'm dropping 100, 150 bandit signs every single weekend. And I finally get this phone call from a disgruntled landlord. She has this rental property, Hispanic lady. She doesn't want nothing to do with it anymore. She's like, I just want cash. I just want to sell it. I'm out. I don't want to deal with everything that's going on. I don't want to re-rent it. I don't want to upkeep it. I don't want none of that. I said, okay. So then what I did was, right, I literally, this started my entire journey to where I am today. I literally put that lady under contract, right? For, I think it was 87,000. At that, I mean, look how long ago, houses were 87,000, right?
Right.
So I put her under contract for 87,000. Now I don't have $87,000. Remember, but I found the deal. The house was worth about 130,000, right? 130, 140, actually. I found the deal. I don't have 87,000. So I put her under contract for 87,000. I take her to Starbucks with me. She signs the agreement, her and her husband. And I'm like, okay, well, what does the book tell me to do now? All right. So the book is telling me that I have to find a cash buyer, right? Closing the deal. Look, I wrote this book with everything you ever need. Like, okay, I got to find a cash buyer. Oh, it's finding a title agency. Okay, let me find a title agency so I can open escrow on this contract, right? Okay, cool. All right, boom. I opened up escrow, and it's telling me to find a buyer. I go on Facebook, right? Hey guys, I have a off-market discounted property. Is there any cash buy? Brother, I'm going nuts. I'm just like, I'm going into real estate groups. I'm going into all kind of Phoenix, yard sale groups. I'm just trying to sell this house because I can't close on it. So then I sell the property. I found a guy named Bryan Ponciano, and I sell the property for $92,000. What I did was, it's called an assignment of interest, right? So here's the contract. Let me get another piece of paper. People can actually learn here. You know what? I'll give out my book for free at the end of this call too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Watch this. So then, now there's another contract called an assignment. Right there, an assignment. So I have a contract for 87. I have an assignment, and I assign the contract for 92,000. Right? Boom, 92. Brother, 6 months, 2,400 bandit tons later, I stuck it out, and I stuck it out, and I stuck it out, and I stuck it out, right? I don't know how many weekends are in 6 months, but man, it was getting to the point where I was trying to pay people like, hey, if I give you $50, can you drive me around? Because it's easier for me to get off the passenger seat and put all these bandit signs down, right? So I assigned the deal, and I made a check for $5,000, man. 5,000, right? I made a check for $5,000, and I'm like, I used to have to work an entire month, by the way. Technically, I worked a lot harder to get this, but it was like one transaction, one deal. That $5,000 changed the trajectory of my life, forever. That was 2013, right? Look what's happened since this $5,000 check. You ready? 1,200 plus homes, okay, since 2013 across the entire country, right? Started 31 companies and then consolidated them down to 16, 12. Now we have 12 companies, too many open doors. Started teaching other people how to build and scale a real estate investment operation, not just a little hustle like I was doing here. No, systems, processes, departments, personnel, right? Everything. I started teaching people how to, this is how I made a name for myself across the country, is I taught a lot of people, all the people that you see now on social media, they came through my programs, they came through my seminars, you know? Here, retired my wife in 2016, retired my mother in 2017. I got one of the, I would say one of the fairly biggest BPO companies. A BPO is a business processing outsourcing company. It's a virtual assistant company that has over 850 plus employees, right? Throughout Mexico and Egypt. That one check started all of these companies. I just got back from Houston. We're entering the oil and gas sector, the industry of oil and gas, right? Natural gas. Having the last 2 years, we've made multiple, every single year, multiple 8 figures. This year, our forecast is $42 million between our entire enterprise, real estate, education, medical, softwares. We have different softwares. We have prospectx.com, listiva.com. I mean, we have investorautomation.com, built all these softwares. Again, the ripple effect of this one deal, right? That came from just, I would say, ignorance or a dream or just being unrealistic, perseverance, everybody in my own family was like, hey man, you're crazy. I don't even know if that's legal. You know how that goes, right? So the ripple effect that came out of massive action, not having it all figured out, making rough draft moves, right? Failing forward. Now, here we are, financial freedom. I don't think, God willing, I don't think that my family, at least for my generation and possibly my daughter's generations, I don't think we ever have to worry about the lack of, electricity bill, mortgage, etc. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where we are today, man. And, in 2016, I started doing some speaking. In 2017, 2018, I started really taking off. In 2020, I was speaking on the biggest stages across the country, next to people like Ed Milet, Dean Graziosi, Gary Vee, Andy Frisella, you name it, Tim Grover, Jim Quick, right? I praise God, man. Like I've been able to speak in front of these, all of them, everybody, right? And I'm the only like Mexican born speaker in these lineups every single time.
Yeah.
I'm the only Mexican born speaker in these lineups. And to me, that's it's just a big blessing from God. You know what I mean?
Do you think your hustle really came from your grandfather originally? Because you didn't have a relationship with your dad.
No, I did not. So, but it's funny. Great question, bro. Here we go. That's okay. Now the good questions start, right? So watch this. So my grandfather, so two sides, right? Let's talk about both grandfathers. My mother's, by the way, the grandparents that took care of me, those were my father's parents.
Oh, okay.
Right? Ironically enough, watch this. From my mother's side, her father, he was an evangelist. He actually, he spoke the word of God, and he traveled from city to city and tribe to tribe, taking all his kids with him, preaching the gospel. Okay. That's a little bit of a hustle if you ask me.
Yeah.
Right. My grandfather from my father's side, yeah, that man worked till he was about 90 years old. Okay. He died when he was about 98. So I saw him hustle. I would literally just sit there, brother, as a little boy, sit there on one of the trenches that he would, like, because when you start building, the way he would build a house, he would create this huge like trench where the foundation was going to go. And, you know, I would just sit there and watch him just with the, you know, pickaxe, just right. And I'm just watching him, and, you know, he's drinking water. And I still remember all this when I was a little boy. So yeah, I saw him hustle hard too. Now, my mother, I mean, you know, look at her, you know, the way I see it. So I learned, I call it, you know, my 5-step success formula. I learned this from my mother, just watching her, because as human beings, we learn the most through demonstration, not reading, not talking, not hearing. We learn the most through, you know, monkey see, monkey do, right? As children, like children, that's just the way we grow up. So, you know, I saw her have a vision, and, you know, she made a decision, and it was very hard for her to make this decision of, I'm going to leave my kids,
right,
and I'm going to go into the uncertainty in another country, right. So for me to see her do that and witness her, I think that left some type of imprint in me. So I saw her make a decision. I saw her stay committed to that decision. I saw her make, you know, every sacrifice you can think of. Her work ethic was undeniable, unmatched. And then her perseverance, you know, because that's what my 5-step success formula is. Literally decision, right? Commitment, sacrifice, work ethic, and perseverance. I saw that in my mother. That's how I learned that formula from her. And then I, you know, once I got going in 2013, I applied that same formula. I made a decision that this is not what it was going to be for me and my children and my family, right? And then I committed to that decision. There was a lot of things that would try to pull me away from that decision. And I made every sacrifice you can think of. I sacrificed my relationships. I sacrificed my hobbies. I sacrificed my own health. I sacrificed everything. Honestly, bro, I was willing to die to get it done. A lot of people won't, like, I would tell God, I'm like, I want success so bad at one point that I'm like, I'm willing to die for it. And that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Because I would rather die having achieved it than live and not try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, there was no in between anymore. You know, I had already made the full commitment to the other side. And obviously I worked my butt off, you know, sacrificed everything, worked my butt off, and I never gave up. Perseverance, never, ever gave up, man. And, you know, think about it. 6 months of dropping bandit signs, 2,400 bandit signs later, most people would probably give up even after a month, you know? Every don't get me wrong, bro. I would be out there sometimes even crying and praying and praying, and Father, you know, this is the one, Father, this is the one. You know, every single bandit sign that I drop, I had so much faith into it, you know. So that's where we are, man. That's where we are today, and, you know, it's been a great journey, and I hope that, you know, God continues to bless us the way He does, and we want to continue to bless everybody around us. You know what I mean? That's where we are today.
Yeah. And you have 2 daughters now. How old are they?
I got a 10-year-old. She's a 5th grader, which is the one I just dropped off. And I got a 4-year-old, and she's still here at home with us. And she, you know, again, monkey see, monkey do, right? So now the beautiful thing, I'll give you an example. This is where we're going to make the switch from entrepreneur to dad, right? Okay. So yesterday, my 10-year-old and my wife, they got into a disagreement. It was about her hair, ponytail, whatever, right? And they got into a real disagreement where my daughter's crying and my wife is frustrated. And now I'm sitting here driving my 10-year-old yesterday, and she's crying to the point, and this, who would think, but you and I both know that as parents, our kids look at us as superheroes. Right. We are everything. You know what I mean? Like, if you tell your kid you're ugly, they're going to believe you. Right. And you're going to hurt them. You're going to scar them for life. Right. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm taking my 10-year-old, and she's just crying in the back of the car, and she can't even catch her breath. She's like, I can't believe that my mom, you know, like, and I'm like, all right, baby. I put the window down. I say, hey, I said, we need to breathe. You know, let's breathe, baby. Let's breathe. And then I go, hey, listen, I said, a bad moment, baby, isn't a bad day.
Right.
And a bad day isn't a bad life. Okay. Then I kept telling her that. A bad moment, but I can't believe it. And, baby, a bad moment isn't a bad day, and a bad day isn't a bad life. I said, I promise. I said, I'll bet you anything that your day is going to end beautifully. You're going to have such a great day. No, my day is already ruined. You know what I mean? Right. So, and so we gather her up because I got to take her to school, right? I don't want her to walk into her classroom crying and then people think that we're abusive at home, right? So, right. So she comes back home, brother, yesterday, and her mom are now, my wife and myself, we try to play this game called Fortnite with her. It's a video game.
Right.
And now they're having a blast. And I'm getting a massage. I get a massage on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. here. Yesterday, I got it at 8. She comes up to me as I'm on the table and she kisses me. She's like, I love you, Dad. Have a good night. And I say, hey, what did we learn today? And she says, that a bad moment isn't a bad day and that a bad day isn't a bad life. You see, programming, right?
Right.
So that's what we're doing with our children now is, there's an old saying, and I say this all the time. I read it from Bruce Lee. I don't know if it's Bruce Lee or not, but he says, don't give your kids all the things you didn't have. Teach them all the things you weren't taught. So I'm making it a point now to just pour into them every day. All the things that I wish that, my father or even my mother poured into me as much as she could, but she just wasn't, she was a hard worker. She's a hustler. She's a go-getter and she's very smart, but she wasn't reading, Think and Grow Rich and Secret to a Millionaire Mind and The Magic of Thinking Big. She wasn't reading these books. You know what I mean?
Most of our parents weren't.
Yeah, they weren't. So that's the beautiful thing about all this knowledge that we are acquiring through our colleagues and books and seminars is we can pour that into the next generation, and now start to build, right? You start to build, okay, here's my generation. Well, let me start building the next generation. And I want them to start building the next generation. And then I want that generation. And that's how families like the Rockefellers and the Trumps and the JP Morgan Chase and all these people, that's how these families start to build and build and build and build, because they're not in it for just 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're in it for 200, 300, 400 years.
Legacy.
Exactly. So,
yeah,
man, my children, bro, they're everything to me now. They're everything. I can't be away. One of the primary reasons why I really don't like to travel much anymore, because you got to go speak somewhere. Guess what? There goes a day or two. I fly in on a Thursday, I speak on Friday, I fly out Saturday morning, right? Whatever. I don't have a private jet like Ed does yet, but it's my goal to get one 2023. That's my goal. Right. God willing. Willing. That's already in the talks. We're already, talking about it. It's my goal to get one for multiple reasons, by the way. One is for the time machine that it is. I want to be able to get on the jet and fly my family to Cabo, right? 2, it is a time machine. And 3, I can just, I can actually, whenever I'm not using a jet, I can just charter the jet out and it'll make a little bit of money, $30,000, $50,000 a month or whatever, and net proceeds when I'm not using it. So it's, I'm going to try to probably grab one of those next year. I'll keep you posted. Right. But yeah, I'm trying to raise the standards for my children. I'm trying to pour into them as much as I can. You have to remember, brother, that I didn't have a father. I didn't have an example. I don't have nothing to go off of. So one day, I thought, because this is what I learned from my mother, and this is a very, very important message here for the dads out there. I thought that me proving or showing them love was through acts of service. Like, hey, I don't need to tell them I love them. I don't need to hug them. And yeah, maybe I would casually, right? But I'm working for them. I'm providing for them, right? They don't need anything. I thought that was enough because that's how my mom showed me love.
Right.
My mom was, imagine being a mom, single mom, trying to raise men, right? She wasn't like, son, I love you. Come here. How was school? No, it was like, I'm working my butt off. I'm providing for you. I love you. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I was going down the same road. And, you know, my wife, had a hard talk with me. And, she's like, hey, she grew up with a great father.
Right.
And he's still around and he's still such a great guy. And, she says, my father worked his butt off and showed us a lot of love at home. So, that was that. And I didn't know how to be a father. And then my brother-in-law, who also grew up with a good dad, he says, hey, why don't you just be the father to your girls that you wish you would have had?
Right.
Why don't you just be the father, that you wish you would have had? And then, everything started to change, man. Like I was playing dolls yesterday. You know what I mean? Like I was playing with the LOL dolls. Like literally I was playing dolls yesterday. I was playing with dolls the day before. I was probably playing dolls before that,
Right.
So now, I try to give my children love and attention, not just security.
Yeah.
Now I try to give them love and attention as much as possible, as often as possible.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because I talk a lot about it on my show about how kids really spell love, and they spell love TIME.
Yeah,
The time that you're spending with your kids.
Where did you learn that, by the way?
I learned that from actually another guest that I had on my show. It was a parenting.
What was his name?
He was a pastor, and
okay. Because I say that all the time. I didn't coin it because I learned it from a mentor.
Yeah, no, I learned it from another guest, and I have to say it's something that it hit me like a ton of bricks because it's something that I've always been good at as a dad myself. I've always been conscious about the time that I spend with my kids since they were babies. But, I coached my kids in the sports that they played from the ages of 4 all the way up through high school. I mean, I was constantly around, and that's how was my interpretation of love, is the time that I'm spending with them. So when he said that to me, I went, wow. I mean, that's what I've been doing. That's exactly what I've been doing. And that's what a lot of dads don't understand. They think that, hey, I have to work these 80-hour weeks so I can put food on the table and clothing on your back and a roof over your head. That's my love to you. And that's absolutely wrong, because kids don't build that bond, that connection with you if you're focusing just solely on that. Yes, that's important. Yes, those things are critical, but
it's just part of it.
Yeah. And it's all about the decision you make. Hey, you don't have enough time in the day. Of course you do. You just have to find it, and you have to make adjustments, and you have to sacrifice other things. And part of that was, when I was coaching, when my boys were in high school and I was coaching, there were times where I work in corporate America. So there were times when I was getting up at 4 a.m. to go into the office so I could leave by 2 so I could go coach their games. Mm-hmm. I made that sacrifice of my sleep so that way I can make sure that I was there for my kids later. So absolutely 100%. It's the time you're spending with your kids. I want to talk about this though, because you talk a lot about your mom kind of showing you how to be, I guess, a businessman, how to really thrive in business. But what did your mom teach you about parenting?
Well, she always made us her number one priority. That's what she taught me is, as a single mother by choice, she left my dad for multiple reasons. One of them was he was a little abusive, and he was on alcohol and sometimes on drugs. So he came back into my life in 2012, by the way. And this, this is I actually should mention how that went, because imagine a dad not being there, then he comes back, and now
it's got to be hard.
Watch, we'll go into that. But my mom taught me that her children were her number one priority at all times. Sometimes she would date other men that were not like, hey, you got to send them back to Mexico. She's like, what? Bye. Like, no, so she always put us first, even before herself. And that to me is a life lesson that I will take with me forever. Right. Putting my babies first. And I still do, I still do. If you know how it is, imagine even something as simple as this. What happens when you're eating food and your kids are around?
They want some food.
They take it.
Right.
Right. And if there's a last slice of whatever, sometimes they're like, I want it. And you're like, well, I guess here, I'm not eating, like we naturally do that as parents. Right. So that's what she taught me is, my children are my number one priority. Let's talk about my father coming back into my life in 2012 when I had MJ, Michaela Jade, my 10-year-old. When he came back in, we try to make things work. He drove from Mexico up to the hospital where my daughter was born, and we try to make things work. We really tried, and for some reason, over the next 10 years, because my father actually he passed a few months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. We try to make things work, but it was trying to build a relationship with a stranger. It was really difficult. And, I got the sense that, he still needed to work through some of those old personality traits and habits. There was still some pride there. There was still a lot of guilt there. There was still a lot of selfishness there, and we try to make it work, and we were cordial. We were like, at first we really try to make it work where he was coming up here once a month, visiting. And it just never felt right. Like sometimes that's what it is, man. When you don't have a father for 20 some years and he comes back into your life and he's trying to make it work and you're trying to make it work and we're both trying to make it work. But the connection, right? Like it was just maybe we needed more time, but we just could never connect to the point where, okay, I have my father, So that's how it is, man. And he passed earlier this year from COVID, right? You never want to say the full word because who knows what will happen to the matrix, the algorithm or whatever, but he passed away in Mexico, and it sucks, man, because I didn't even get to say goodbye to him. And I want you to know that, I didn't hold any grudges. He's my father. I love him. I loved him, and I'm sure that there was a lot of him in me, and I got to see that, when I started to getting to know him, I started to see the good, that, oh man, I got that from my dad. Okay, cool. Right. Started to see the bad. I started to see the ugly. I saw it all. And, we just could never really connect them, and God bless them. And, may God rest his soul. But the message is this, for any father out there that has children that, maybe they're not with their wives, maybe it's a broken marriage at this point, that alone is going to be very tough on the children. The games that the parents play, the kids will pay, the games that parents play, the kids will pay. So if there's any broken marriages out there, I'm telling the fathers this, don't ever for 1 second make your children feel like you're not there. You're not there. Let them know that you are fully there for love, for direction, for support, for guidance, right? Every day. Send a little text message every day. Make the effort. Water the grass. You know what I mean? I think your children, whether it's a broken marriage or not, and if it's not a broken marriage, even more so, make the effort every day. Don't ever allow too much time or too much distance to play a factor, because sometimes some relationships and some wounds are just not repairable. So, for all the fathers out there, don't waste another day.
Right.
If you technology, like we have the capability now of literally sending a message. By the way, that's Ed. Okay? Literally something like this, right? Like the little record, hey son, I just want to let you know that I'm thinking about you. I love you. I'm here for you. Whatever it is that you need, I want to be here for you. So, my door is completely open for you.
Right.
Send, you see? Even something as small, what did that take me? 5 seconds?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, get it done, because that small little effort of being involved in our children's lives and letting them know that, hey, I love you, right? Especially for us to have daughters. Like I have a daughter. You don't have daughters. I have daughters. Listen, if I don't give my daughters the time, the love, the attention, they're going to look for another man.
Yep.
And that might not be ideal. So I just want to, let all the dads know out there, man, like step up, step up. This is what's happening in America. It's like broken homes create broken men, and broken men create more broken homes. Right. It's just a vicious cycle that I'm starting to see. And I think we need to step up, because 9 out of 10 times, man, when things don't work out in a home, it's us. It's the men. It's us.
Yeah, we have outrageous egos, and you say step up. I say dad up. So
dad up. Let's go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I think you're right, and it's one thing that I preach a lot about it with dads that are grinding, and I appreciate that they're out there grinding, hustling, trying to make a living for their family. But the critical time to really do that when the kids are younger is hard, because you're trying to find that balance of how do I do that and how do I be a successful dad, and really trying to find the time to be there for your kids when they need you most, especially when they're younger. When your kids are younger, they need you around. They need to see your presence. They need to see your leadership. They need to see your guidance. They need to see your love. They need to see those things when they're younger, because that's when the bonds start to build. That's when the bonds start to mold together. And the stronger that bond is, the better off in life they'll be later in life. Because when your kids are teenagers, and your daughters, Carlos, when they're teenagers, they're not going to want to hang out with dad. They're going to hang out with their friends. Yeah. They're going to want to go do this. They don't want their dad hugging them, those kind of things. But if your bond is strong with them now, trust me, they come back when they start to hit those young adult years, that they start to come back. And if that bond is strong, like it was when they were younger, that bond will still be there. And you're showing examples of that just in the fact that you didn't have your dad. So that bond was never there. So then when he did come back, there was some awkwardness, and that's because that bond was not there. That wasn't developed when you were younger. And so that's the point of what I'm trying to say, is that build that bond with your kids now when they're younger, because teenage years, those are the rough years. Those are the years they want to be independent. They're trying to find out who they are as people. Yeah. They're trying to figure out who they are and who their friends are. They're so worried about everything else around them. They don't have time for mom and dad. That's okay. Don't take offense by that, because when they do hit those young adult years, they start to come back. My two boys, 23 and just about to be 21, are two of my best friends. And it's because I attribute that because of the bond that I built with them when they were younger. Wow. I was so intentional with them when they were younger that now they're two of my best friends, and they still come to me. My older son, he does very well for what he does. He's college graduate, working in corporate America in sales, doing very well for himself. And he still comes to me for advice or guidance. Wow. And that's because of the bond that I built with him when he was younger. And so it's critical for dads to really understand that, hey, yes, you have to go out and provide for your family. You've got to be out there making money so that way you provide a safety net for your family, food, clothing, house, all that kind of stuff. But you have to build the bond with them. And that bond will carry them for the rest of their lives. And you're a living example of that, how it didn't necessarily work out. Unfortunately, didn't necessarily work out with your dad, but your mom did build that bond with you.
Yes.
She did build that bond with you. She may have been gone a couple of years, but she was doing it for the right reasons. And because of that, that bond was so strong, and you have that relationship with her now. So remember that with your kids, because your daughters are still young. They're still in those growing years. Like I said, when they hit teenage years, it's going to be a completely different ballgame for you. But the fact that you're intentional with them now, trust me, it'll carry on. And you're right. You want to make sure that your daughters understand how they should be treated by a man.
Absolutely.
Because if you're treating them poorly, they will look for that example when they're adults. So you want to make sure your daughters understand how they should be treated by other men. So that way, when they do become adults, they understand, hey, this is how I was treated, and this is how I expect to be treated.
Absolutely.
And I won't expect to be treated any other way.
I open my 10-year-old's door, when I take her, I open her door, I bring them flowers, bring them roses, bring them. I mean, I try to treat their mother. Most importantly, I love their mother. You know what I mean? And I think that goes a long way. I'm constantly, complimenting my wife, hugging my wife, kissing my wife, treating her with love and respect. And I feel like that example is going to go a long way, because my 10-year-old sees it. She sees it, right?
Yep.
I want it to the point to when a man isn't treating my daughter the right way, I want it to feel so unnatural to her, where she's just like, yeah, I can't do this.
Right.
I would love if that, like, because she knows, in her heart, wait a minute, this is not how my dad treated me. Right. This is not how my dad treated my mother. Right. Nah, I don't know this. This isn't natural to me, So that's you hit the nail on the head, brother.
Yeah, exactly. And you're showing that through your daughter, through what I like to refer to as more as caught than taught. So you're not teaching your daughter these things. She's seeing it. She's seeing the examples. So she's catching those examples and she's retaining them. It's going to carry forward. So well done, man. Well done. Let me ask you this, because I running out of time here. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. But if my listeners wanted to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, best place for them to do that. And then,
easiest place is Instagram at Carlos, CarlosReyes, Carlos Reyes on Instagram. And I try to be very responsive, and the DMs. I don't think that's something that I'm ever going to stop. I've been doing that since 2013. No matter who you are, right? Whether you're a blue check mark that comes in through the DMs, or you're just a regular, up and coming person that is just looking for some advice. I feel like, and don't get me wrong, it might not be right away, but I will get to it, and I will serve whoever finds me on there and, ever needs any piece of advice. So Carlos Reyes on Instagram.
Yeah. And just so you know, the Carlos Reyes, he does have the blue check mark. So make sure you look for that as well. To make sure.
I was one of the few lucky ones. I heard a lot of people now, they got to portray to be DJs and musicians to get a check mark. So right. I was one of the few lucky ones that actually legitimately got it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, Carlos, I'm certainly thankful for who you are, not only as a business person, but also as a dad and a husband. The things that you're doing, keep it up, because you're doing it the right way. You're providing for your family the way you need to, but you're also intentional with your time with your kids. And also, I am thankful for our friendship. I'm thankful for our continuing friendship. I'm looking forward to growing this thing, and I'm looking forward to staying in contact with you, my friend. I really,
same, brother. Next time
really appreciate it.
Let's go to lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Next time I'm out in Arizona, I definitely will do that. My younger son just moved there to college, like I was telling you before we started recording. And the next time that we're out there, I'll definitely hit you up. I got to get your cell phone number. So let me make sure I get that. But so thank you again for being on the show. Really appreciate it. Look forward to staying in touch with you. And for all my listeners out there, make sure you look up Carlos Reyes. Check out things that he's doing. If you're interested in any type of anything dealing with real estate, whether it's home flipping or just buying, selling, whatever it is, and you need some advice or have a question, reach out to him, because he does respond. He does respond to his DMs.
Oh, so, by the way, my free book. So I didn't create this book, by the way. I didn't create this book to sell the book. I created the book because a book changed my life, So if they go to Best REI book, BESTREI book.com, they'll go to a link where they can just download the book straight to their phone for free. So bestreibook.com, or you can buy it on Amazon for like, $20 or something, but don't do that, right? If you want a physical copy, obviously go to Amazon, but bestreibook.com and get my book for free. And, God willing, the book can change your life the way a $10 book changed my life, many moons ago.
Awesome. Well, make sure you guys do that. Make sure you guys go to that website if you want a copy of the book. Like he said, a book changed his life, and I'm certain that if you're interested in doing any type of thing in real estate, that pick up this book, it'll change your life. So Carlos, thank you again, brother. Thank you guys all for watching this episode of Dad Up. I look forward to seeing you all on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the episode. Make sure you guys subscribe to my podcast and YouTube channel. And please do me a favor, leave a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you and see what you think of the show.
Stay tuned for more exciting episodes each week. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Dad Up Podcast.